Hello everyone, and welcome to the Library Kitchen here at the Gloucester County Public Library. I'm Chris, and today we're going to be demonstrating a recipe that you can use for your St. Patrick's Day feast. Today we're going to be making an Irish stew, and what goes better with Irish stew than Irish soda bread and some Kerrygold butter. So this is a recipe that's done in a slow cooker. So today we're going to get started with our ingredients, and we're going to brown our chuck roast in our cast iron skillet and then transfer it to the slow cooker. So let me go over the ingredients with you. You're going to use 2 pounds of chuck roast cubed in 1-inch squares. You're going to use 1 onion finely diced. You're going to use 4 russet potatoes. You're going to use 2 cups of baby carrots chopped. You're going to need a 1/4 cup of beef broth, 2 bay leaves, a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of pepper. Also, I recommend using a crock pot liner in your slow cooker so it's easier to clean up. And we're going to use a Ziploc bag, and we're going to put in a 1/4 cup of flour, because in the beginning we're going to put our flour, our salt, and our pepper in this bag. We're going to give it a little bit of a shake here, and we're going to add our beef. And this will coat the beef in flour so that when we cook it on our cast iron skillet, it'll create a little bit of a browning of that beef. And it will also help with our stew, to thicken our stew in the slow cooker as it cooks. So I'm going to get this in the bag, give it a good shake here in just a second, and then we're going to turn on our skillet on medium to medium high heat with a little bit of olive oil. So we're going to seal the bag and give everything a good shake and coat that beef with the salt, pepper, and flour. So we're going to go ahead and get our cast iron heated up with a little bit of olive oil. And that'll take just a minute or two. Well folks, we're back and our skillet has heated up nicely. We're going to go ahead and we're going to brown our ground beef in 2 batches. That way the beef gets nice and brown. It's not overcrowded in the skillet. And this will take about 4 to 5 minutes. So it's been a couple minutes now, and our beef is getting brown in the skillet. What we're going to go ahead now and do is we're going to add our beef broth to our slow cooker, along with our 2 bay leaves. Now we're going to put that first batch of meat into the slow cooker. All right, and we're going to add a little bit of more oil to our skillet, and then put the rest of our beef in our skillet to brown. So again, that'll take another 3 to 4 or 5 minutes to get nice browning on this beef. We'll add that to the cooker and move on to the next step. See you in a few minutes. Well, it's been a couple minutes. Our beef is getting brown, so we're going to go ahead and add the second batch to our slow cooker, and then we're going to cook our onions. We're going to cook the onions in the skillet with all that great fond that's on the bottom of the pot from cooking this beef. And our onions are going to get translucent, and they're also going to pick up a lot of the fond from cooking the beef. So let's go ahead and move this over to our slow cooker. All right, and you can see we got a lot of brown bits on the bottom of our skillet. We're just going to add a little bit more oil, and then we're going to add in our onions. And they'll take just a minute or two to cook. And as they start cooking, we're going to add a splash of beef broth here in just a second to kind of deglaze the bottom of the pan with these onions. So we'll be back in just 2 minutes. So folks, it's been around 2 minutes and our onions are starting to get nice and soft. We're going to go ahead and deglaze our pan to bring up the flavor from the bottom of that cast iron skillet from cooking that beef. So we're going to take just a little bit of beef broth and we're going to add it to our onions, and then we're going to start to scrape the bottom of the pan. And within a minute or so, that beef broth will help bring up all of that fond that was built up on the bottom of our skillet and impart that flavor into the onions. When this happens, after a minute or so, we're going to go ahead and add the onions to our beef in the slow cooker, and we're going to set the slow cooker onto low and put the lid on for 4 hours. Okay, and after the 4-hour mark, we will add our carrots and our potatoes. So I'll see you back here in just 1 minute. All right, so we're going to add our onions to our slow cooker. We're going to give this a quick stir. Mix everything together. We're now going to put our lid on our slow cooker, set for low for 4 hours. See you in 4 hours. So we've let our onions and beef cook for 4 hours in our slow cooker. We are now going to add our 4 russet potatoes that we diced along with our 2 cups of baby carrots diced. So we're just going to open the slow cooker. We're going to add the carrots and the potatoes. We're going to give that a quick stir to incorporate all the vegetables and the beef. We're going to return our lid and set our timer for 4 to 6 hours until the potatoes become tender. So at that point, you're ready to serve your stew. So I've got some that we made earlier today, and I'll be showing you that in a few minutes after we bake our bread. So stay tuned. So folks, we have our Irish stew in our slow cooker, and again, that takes about 8 to 10 hours to completely cook all the way. So it's a good thing to put in on the weekend, let it simmer all day. Now we're going to go on and make our Irish soda bread. And it's a fairly quick bread. It doesn't have yeast, so it doesn't need to sit and rise. We're going to make it in our bowl here, form it into our loaf, put it in the oven. 30 minutes later, we'll have a fresh loaf of bread. So what we're going to need, we need our oven, and we've got it turned on to preheat at 425. We are going to use 1 3/4 cups of whole wheat flour, 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 tablespoons of Kerrygold Irish butter cubed, 1 beaten egg, and 1 2/3 cup of buttermilk, a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of baking soda. So let's go ahead and start combining our ingredients. So we're going to put in our flour, our whole wheat flour. We're going to add our all-purpose flour. We also now going to cut in our butter. And really all that is adding the butter to the flour. We're going to use our hands and incorporate that butter into the flour. Very similar to like when you're making biscuits. So you're just going to run your hands through that flour and squeeze the butter into the flour. And this just might take just a few minutes. So folks, I'm incorporating that butter into the flour. For the most part, it should look like little small pebbles worked into that flour. We're going to now add our baking soda and our salt. And then I like to take a little stainless steel whisk and get all of that baking soda, salt, butter, and flour incorporated really good. Because the next step, we're going to be adding our egg to our buttermilk and whisk that together before adding to our flour mixture. So that looks pretty good. So we're going to take our buttermilk and add our egg. And then whisk our egg into our buttermilk. We're going to make a weld in the center of our bowl here and incorporate the buttermilk. Only pour about 3/4 of the buttermilk into the flour. And then we're just going to use our open hand to mix this dough. So start with 3/4 of the amount of buttermilk that you've got and start mixing that flour and the buttermilk and egg together. You can see it's starting to come together. There's still some dry spots of flour. So we're going to add a little more buttermilk and just fold. We're not trying to knead this dough at all. So we're going to go ahead and turn our dough out into our floured pastry sheet. So we're just going to basically shape this loaf. Put a little flour on the board. And we just really want to have this dough come together into about a 8 to 10 inch loaf. It might be a little sticky. Just roll that dough around that pastry surface. Incorporate a little bit of that flour. And you can see our loaf has come together nicely. And we're going to press down to actually make a loaf about 8 to 10 inches around. And we're going to put this on a floured baking sheet. All right, folks, we're back. We had to do a little cleanup on our table here. So now we're going to do the traditional Irish blessing of the bread. And so it's tradition that when you make a loaf of Irish soda bread, that you bless the bread so that it will come out perfect. So what we're going to do, and the traditional way is to take a knife. We're going to go across the top in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost, Amen. And that is the Irish blessing of the bread. We're also then going to poke 4 holes in each corner of the bread to let the fairies out so they don't curse our bread in the oven. 1, 2, 3, 4. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of that buttermilk egg mixture that we didn't use, and we're just going to glaze our bread. Just a light glazing. It'll give it a nice golden crust in the oven. Now, to cook this bread, we have preheated our oven to 425, and we're going to Cook it for 15 minutes at 425, then reduce the heat down to 400 for another 30 minutes. So altogether, it's going to bake around 45 minutes. 425 for 15, then reduce it to 400 for 30 minutes. So I'll see you back in just a little bit. So folks, we're back and we're ready to serve our Irish stew and Irish soda bread. So let's cut into the bread. Nice slice here for everyone. And we'll put this on our plate. And of course, you can't have Irish soda bread without Kerrygold butter. So we're just going to slather some butter on our bread. And this bread is great serving with this stew. So there's our soda bread. And our stew has been cooking for about 10 hours. And this is really a hearty stew, folks. The beef, potatoes, carrots, and onions. What to have better on St. Patrick's Day than Irish stew and Irish soda bread? Let's see how this tastes. Fabulous. Enjoy. Thank you for being here at the Library Kitchen. Bye-bye.